Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from wherever you may be joining us from. We are very happy you could be with us today for this special Women's Earth Alliance World Weaver event, Voices from the Ocean, Healing Our Waters. Today, we'll have the honor of hearing from three impactful leaders who are building a national community of women divers who are monitoring our waters, uplifting visibility of women's leadership in ocean-focused spaces. With that said, I'm so excited to greet you and welcome you all. Aloha mai, aloha aina kako o kahea pasheko ko'uinoa no punamayal makamokupuni o Hawaii nei. Hello, everyone. My name is Kahea Pacheco, and I'm a co-executive director here at Women's Earth Alliance. I'm joining you today from the District of Puna on the eastern side of the island of Hawaii, which are my home territories, and I'm very happy to be here to celebrate, honor, and learn from the wisdom of those who are stewarding and have long stewarded our land with such care and respect. Finally, while we are gathering virtually today and while WIA has a global team located around the world, WIA's home base is located in what is currently known as Berkeley, California in the San Francisco Bay Area, but what is also known as Huichin, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. And I want to thank our Ohlone relatives for allowing us to call that place home. We recognize that these are stolen lands, and we as an organization and as community members have a responsibility to do all that we can to be good guests of this land. And while land acknowledgements are an important first step, they must always be followed up with action. In Huichin, we take action by naming the ongoing and normalized colonization of Indigenous lands, by speaking the original name of our lands, by collaborating with local Ohlone leaders like Karina Gold, the chair and spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of Lejeune, who was also a designer and facilitator in our US Grassroots Accelerator, and through our Shumi Land Tax, which supports our colleagues at the Sigorte Land Trust as they do the important work of rematriating their lands. We do this because we, collectively as an alliance, envision a future that is not only thriving and sustainable, but just. In the chat, we'll include some information on where and how we pay our Shumi and invite you to consider ways you can join us in taking action today. With that said, for those of you who are new to our community, welcome. I would love to share a little about who we are and what brings us here today. Women's Earth Alliance is a 20-year global initiative that equips women on the front lines of environmental crises with the resources, training, networks, and funding they need to protect their lands, waters, food, and communities. Since 2006, we have worked at the intersection of women's rights and the environment, creating programming serving grassroots leaders around key environmental themes of regenerative agriculture and food systems, conservation and ecosystem stewardship, sustainable livelihoods, clean energy access and advocacy, health and well-being, and Indigenous ecological knowledge stewardship. In partnership with both national and global organizations and networks, we co-design capacity building trainings where women leaders access technology, financing, mentorship, and a global alliance. To date, WIA has trained and funded more than 59,000 women environmental leaders across 31 countries, reaching more than 24 million people with improved environmental, social, and economic conditions. WIA recognizes that women leading environmental initiatives are underserved in every way. Therefore, our key strategy is to leverage the power of that global alliance to mobilize resources and utilize collective action and collaboration to alleviate the burdens and barriers placed on grassroots women environmental leaders. Today, we will be hearing from three leaders who are doing such important work to protect our oceans and who truly embody our central theory of change here at WIA, which is when women thrive, the earth thrives. So with that, I'm thrilled to pass things over to our panel host for today, WIA's Regional North America Coordinator, Laura Vigil Escalaria Mia, who will introduce our guests and get our conversation going. Lau?
Thank you so much, Kahea. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm truly happy to see so many people joining us today. I already recognize some familiar names and also so many new ones. And as Kahea said, we'd love to invite you to introduce yourselves and in the chat. I'm very happy to be here helping facilitate this conversation alongside our special guest as part of our International Women's Day celebration. And as Kahea shared a moment ago about the work of Women's Earth Alliance globally, I'd like to focus a little bit more on the context in Mexico before starting the conversation. In Mexico, as in many places around the world, climate change, gender based violence, and economic inequality intersect in very real and complex ways. Globally, women are responsible for more than half of the world's food production, yet they own only a small fraction of the land. At the same time, environmental initiatives led by women receive less than 1% of global climate funding. And this reality is very much reflected in Mexico as well. And yet, despite these challenges, women continue to organize, they continue to defend their territories, and we continue to build solutions. Since 2024, this work and WIA has supported 6 women-led collectives across Mexico. Together, they have trained just in 2025 more than 600 women and girls, reach over 2,000 people, and help protect and restore more than 3,000 hectares of marine ecosystems and over 300 hectares of land ecosystems. I'd like to briefly highlight the work of each of them because it is important to recognize the work that this program leads have been doing alongside WIA. I'd like to take you first to Guerrero with Afro Caracolas. They are an Afro-feminist collective that promotes economic autonomy for Afro-Mexican women while advancing environmental justice through community tilapia farm. We also work in the other side of the country with Las Cañadas in Veracruz. They are an agroecological cooperative that protects the cloud forest ecosystems while training communities in regenerative agriculture, ecotechnologies, and seed conservation. In the center of the country, we work with Mujeres de la Tierra, Mujeres de la Periferia. It's a collective of Popoloca indigenous women who defend women's rights and strengthen traditional food systems like the milpa through their community initiative known as the Escuelita de la Tierra, the Little Earth School. We also work with POJCA in the Ayuk community in Tlahuitoltepec, Oaxaca. They protect ancestral knowledge, native seeds, and medicinal plant traditionals. And with WIA, we are currently installing rainwater harvesting systems to address water stress during periods of scarcity. And we also work with Unión de los Pueblos de Morelos. We are supporting rural women farmers to strengthen food sovereignty and economic autonomy across communities in the state. And well, of course, the starts of today's conversations, Sirenas de México. It's a growing network of women divers dedicated to the ocean conservation and to advising gender equity in marine spaces. As you just heard, across Mexico, this work spans many ecosystems and approaches, but there's a shared belief when women lead and thrives, ecosystems and communities also thrive. So today, we want to focus on one of those essential territories, and this is the ocean. Sirenas de Mexico network began just 2 years ago through collaboration with WIA and COBI, and it started with 3 women, and I think this number is like very important. It started with 3 women divers who shared a simple but very powerful vision to protect the ocean and to create more space for women within marine conservation. And today, the network has grown to more than 50 community women divers caring for Mexico's oceans. 6 of them have become certified dive masters, and they are leading their own monitoring expeditions now. So, with that, I'd love to introduce the incredible women with us today. First, it's Mitzi. Mitzi is a co-founder of Sirenas de Natividad and a member of Sirenas de Mexico. She's part of the coordinating team, and she participated in the very first Sirenas project back in 2013, assessing how oxygen and temperature affect the blue abulón survival. She proudly calls herself the fisher's eyes, and throughout community monitoring, she found the marine career she had always dreamed of, and today her work is inspiring a new generation of ocean protectors, including her own daughter, Mitzi. Then there's Elba. Elba is a co-founder and the communications lead of Sirenas de Mexico. She has been a pioneer in abalone monitoring since 2013, just as Mitzi, and has spoken openly about what it means to be a woman in scientific diving, including the double workload many community divers carry. Her voice has been essential in highlighting the value of women's work in marine conservation, work that often goes unseen, but it's deeply, deeply transformative. Bienvenida, Elba, qué gusto tenerte aquí. And finally, but not least, Añela. Añela is also a co-founder of Sirenas de México and a member of CECIM's group. She describes the sea as both her home and her school. And witnessing human impacts on the ocean led her into technical diving and environmental activism. She envisions a strong transformative network that reshapes coastal communities and solidifies women's leadership as a driving force in ocean protection. Bienvenida también a ti, Añela. So, the format, we have prepared some questions for everyone, but as we continue, please stick any questions in the chat and our team will be monitoring those questions. Hola, Mitzi.
Hi, Mitzi, Elba, and Añela. Welcome, welcome. We are very glad to have you here. And I wanted to start the conversation from the beginning. When I say from the beginning, I refer to the moment that calls you to do this work. Not when you started Sirenas de Mexico, but that personal moment, anything that you saw under the water or anything that you saw in your community that made you feel that you couldn't see what was happening, what brought you to do this work?
Hola, Lau.
Hi, I'm gonna start.
Pues la verdad de mí no fue un momento, sino
Personally, it wasn't a specific moment. It was a process for me. I saw the bottom of the ocean when I was a child working with my dad. And to a certain degree, I got used to see the amount of coral and species under the water. And it just looked nice to me. Then I grew up, I had a family, I dedicated my time to my children, and then Colby came to get certified as divers. And then I went back to the ocean, and I don't know if it was because of destiny or luck, the space where we went with our instructor, Arturo, it was right next to where I used to go diving with my dad as a child. And when I dived in the ocean, it clicked to me because I didn't see the amount of species that I saw down there. I didn't see the amount of color that I saw when I was a child. And it was right in that moment when I saw the impact that humans were creating in the ocean. But I also realized that it was very little women that were doing this type of work to bring visibility to what the ocean can show us. And in that moment of the certification, it was only 2 women, me and another woman, and in a group of 7 men. And that's when it clicked to me, when I realized of all the impact that we were having in so little years. Thank you for your answer. And it's so beautiful that since you were a child, you were in the ocean, and then to go back and realize how everything has changed. Now, Elva, Mitzi, I don't know if you want to answer to the same question. Just like Añela, my whole life I grew up in a community of fishermen, and my dad was a diver as well, and we used to go to the beach to hang out, and we never had the curiosity of learning the names of the species and what is the value of that species in the chain of consumers in the ocean. I married when I was very young, and in this community there's not access to technology, or maybe back then. And when I started to learn the names of the species and just sharing all that knowledge with my dad and my grandparents, it was very gratifying for me and my family. And since then, they have been very interested in learning all the issues. And before we knew the actual name, we would make up names for the species. And now we actually exchange scientific information, and we created that connection with the ocean.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Hi, good afternoon. In my case, as Daniela and Mitzi were saying, I also grew up in my territory with fishermen, and I wish that my childhood was spent in an island, but in fact, I spent my childhood surrounded by other type of ecosystems, like the countryside. And my connection with the ocean was when I was 22 years old, when I started to become a diver. And before that, I used to swim with my children, my husband. And the first time that we went to diving to the deeper ocean, it was with my husband. I was very scared, and I told him I just wanted to stay in the shallow water, but he brought me far away from the beach, and he got me on his shoulders, and he brought me to the deepest part, and I was looking up, and I saw all the floating forest. I always just saw them from the beach, and I just saw like a little branches from the beach. I didn't know what was down there. And when I saw everything from the deepest part, and I remember looking up, and the scientific name is Garibaldi, but we used to call them naranjitos. And I remember thinking, what is this world? I never imagined that years later I was come to this organization. And then we got certified as divers, and I became a monitor and to take care of our oceans and our reservations. And that was the very first time that I actually looked at the kelp forest with those eyes, and I was thinking, wow, this is a whole other world. And our vision and commitment is to show that to many other women that didn't know about them, because we didn't know it was a reservation. We knew that the monitors, the men that were monitors, were doing that work, but we didn't really know what was in there. And now that we are doing the monitoring, many women of the community that have joined our organization now know what we do, and many of them are interested in becoming monitors as well. Thank you so much for those inspiring stories. And for those of you that don't know, the background that she had in her computer, that's the forest that she was describing, if you were curious about it. And it's so important to hear everything they're saying, how they created those connections since they were children or later. But it was interesting to hear that men were the ones protecting first. And I wanted to ask you about the reality that women face doing this type of work. We have heard that in many fishing communities, women have had less access to the ocean and have not been able to participate in decision making, and they don't really take care of the ocean. And I wanted to ask you, in your communities, how have you lived this reality, and in what ways Sirenas de México has opened these spaces for more women? Actually, with Sirenas that we started in 2013 was very impactful for all of us, because initially it was only 2 women in a mixed group of 10 men, and it was very challenging to work with them because they were always creating a distinction maybe they were just trying to be gentlemen, and many times they will not allow us to carry our own equipment. And sometimes that was very frustrating because you want to learn, you want to do things on your own, you want to see what it takes to do the work, and it was hard to hear the comments in the communities as well, because they've never seen women working on this, and we don't take species out of the water, we just take data. But it was very stressful that we were not allowed to work, or they will sometimes give negative opinions about us because they saw us as an annuance. But after so many years, the community realized that we are a very important part of the network. And last year, when we were with the rest of the girls in Sirenas de México, in La Paz, we were also sharing how it was very challenging at the beginning for all the women, but we always had the support of a male person, a dad or grandpa, that helped us to not give up. And some of them had very impactful stories, because some of them actually fish and take the species out of the water, and to collect the species out of the water, they need to know how to do it so they don't affect the ecosystems. And the fishing systems have changed, and the mentality in the communities have changed as well. I don't know if that answered the question. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you muted. I don't know if anybody else would like to share as well. Yeah, it's so important to, as you were saying, after many years, little by little, the men in the community and people in general started to get used to the idea of you doing this work, and it's not just some women doing something that nobody understands, but you're part of the decision making of your communities. And now changing the tone about the work, and maybe going back to talking for people that don't know what it is to be a community monitor diver. What does it mean? Can you maybe guide us? What is that you do? What is that you're looking for? How does it feel to be under the water, and what type of preparation you need to go through to be a community diver? Yeah, in our case, the monitoring is a little different. I'll tell you about the one that we do in our territories and what we do in our kelp forest, like the one that you can see in my background. For us, journey starts not just when we are diving, but days before the diving date. We have to prepare our equipment. We need to work on our work plan. We need to assign a leader, because the group is a mixed group. There's men of the community that are part of the co-op that work in the fishermen's co-op, but also Sirenas, mermaids, is a mixed group. And Sirenas is a group of women that in 2019 adopted this organization. And going back to the other topic, for us, work journey is to get the equipment a few days before. We need to have the instinct of safety. Safety is first. We need to have the tanks ready. All the equipment needs to be right and functioning well. And in the morning, for instance, Mitzi and Zulema are mothers. They have babies. So they have twice as much work, because they need to find childcare or bring them to school. And I actually went through those stages, but now my children are older. But I also had to go through those activities of being mom and being a monitor diver. In the morning, we assign the leader, we work on the work plan, and then we go to the co-op or we get together, we get the tanks there, we get on the boat, and then we choose the area we will monitor. And I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about that.
Sí, sumando un poco lo que dices, ya llevamos varios años donde las mujeres somos las que
Yes,
lideran.
adding a bit to what you've said, for years, we women have been involved in this monitoring work. And I want to give a round of applause for us because it has been very difficult to bring about an organization like this without men in leadership roles. And so we go under the ocean, we bring basically a cord, and we have our tablet and our pen and special paper that we use that you can write on under the ocean. And we tie ourselves to a rock or something that we find. We find our direction and we monitor fish, kelp, invertebrates, and the type of seafloor. So every trip you do, you have to spend at least 5 minutes, but no more than 10 to not overcount the species. And so we start with fish because if we do it after, they will get scared and run away. So first we count the fish, and then we count the kelp. And in our areas, there's a lot of different ones: sargasso, coliflores, and other ones that are invasive. And we count all of this stuff. And we record the invertebrates, which are very important as well. We count species that are important for our cooperative, because without sargasso, the abalone, which is a species that sustains the cooperative, that they won't have any food to eat. So, and for example, the lobsters are very much affected by the water temperatures, and the whole ecosystem is affected. So we count the invertebrates, which are very important: snails, abalone, and the spiky ones, and the different sorts of coral, and so the urchins, sorry. And so we do a uniform point of contact. That's at the end. With our finger, we put a spot every meter and we measure the depth and the sort of the nature of the sea floor, whether it's sand, whether it's rock, whether it's coral, whether it's covered with some invertebrates like sponges. So we count all of those things so that when we finish, we can provide all of that data to a colleague who adds it all up. And afterwards, she makes a graphic that allows us to compare what we're observing currently to previous years to see if there are improvements or to see if the water temperature has risen. And we present that to the board of directors of our organization. And it's a mixed group. It's the group that's in charge of our cooperative. And so there are other types of ecosystems that we monitor as well. We are monitoring. We have a lot of different equipment that we use. We use wetsuits, we use hats, we use gloves, and all these things because it's a very cold space where we're in diving. Yes, and our preparation is similar to what you do. Our experience is that instead of having the challenge of cold water, we have other challenges in terms of depth. And so we're monitoring in an area where we have a huge quantity of different marine species. And so we have huge numbers that we're counting, right? And then we ourselves bring the data up and we enter it in our databases. So the depths are a big factor for us. We can go down for 8 to 10 minutes maximum. And as a diver, that you really can't have a margin of error. So if you lose a pen, if you drop something, it's basically lost. You have to start all over again. And we also are very aware that our work plan is not a plan where it says we're doing this for sure on the 15th, because we really are affected so much by climate change. And so often we have planned to go out and we want to go out, but we can't do it because of the conditions. And so we also have strong currents and lots of things that influence our work. But preparation for us is quite similar to what you've described.
Muchísimas gracias por sus respuestas.
Thank you so much for your answers. I see that we've also got questions in the chat that are quite linked to what I was going to ask you. So now that we're discussing these species that you gather and the analysis of the water that you do and all of that, I would love to know, how does the data that you gather, how has that data changed? Or how does that benefit the ecosystems and the communities where you live? And let us know if you've seen changes in the ocean. And who do you provide the information to from the data, based on the data that you gather? And what are you doing to, of course, involve more women in the decision making based on the work that you do of data gathering? So tell us about how the data is important for you and how it's useful in terms of knowing and improving your ecosystems and communities. Well, the data that we gather since 2013, which is when we started these monitoring processes with the biologists and these oceanographic studies, we used to just go out diving and gather the data and do everything we could to ensure that that data would be as loyal as possible to the realities we're observing. We trained in open waters, and then the following year, Mitzi and I were doing monitoring. Just basically learning, flying by the seat of our pants, as we say. And so over the years, we've been able to train more and more. And we realized that we occasionally used to have data that was a bit off, but now our data has become quite precise. And COI is an organization that benefits from our data, and groups of fisher people that do projects. And we still want to train those folks so that they can use our graphics to understand really the current realities. And through my work, what I've seen is that a lot of the data has been quite useful for the cooperative in our decision making, in decisions about where to fish, where not to fish. And since 2006, we have these same two reserves and different areas for fishing. And we have evaluated the reserves, and we've done comparative studies and control studies. And so the cooperative currently is the entity that gathers that data and stores it. And so we help to inform the decision making about where fishing should occur. And we're seeing that the biomass and all these numbers of species have really expanded. And over the years, you know, as I said, we were flying by the seat of our pants at the very beginning, and we would sometimes just see 1, 2, or 3 abalone and when we were going meter by meter. But now, over these years, 3 years ago, one time I remember seeing 30 blue abalones in one single observation, and that was quite surprising. I saw that those abalone were right out in the open. Look, here I am. And so it's incredible what we've witnessed over the years. we've seen with heat waves that the kelp forests have been shrinking, but of course, we're observing the way the waters are heating up with climate change. And as Mitzi says, the hottest temperatures we've recorded on our shores is 22 degrees Celsius, which was in 21 or 22. And we're always seeing various different fluctuations of 12 and 13 degrees. And we do notice that there's been a real increase in these areas, an increase in marine life and species. And we are trying to really protect our little space here, because these are sinks. These are carbon sinks as well for the areas. And of course, we fish there, people fish there, but the kelp forests continue to seed themselves and to expand in the areas where the fishing occurs. And so that's what I can tell you about what we do with our data.
Pues así recordando como alguna anécdota, alguna historia.
And just in terms of an anecdote or a story that comes to mind, and the abalone that was not fished, we could see that the larva was traveling and going great distances. We found the same DNA quite far away. And so we know that the protected areas have been working because the larva of these abalone has been expanding and also circulating around the area near the reserve. And we saw great improvements in the abalone and the lobster species. Since 2013, we have realized that things have really grown a lot, because in our initial years, we didn't really see much. And abalone is very important for our cooperative. And so, as we were saying, we see these huge ones now, very beautiful, giant abalone. And in terms of the lobster, we gather those data, and we have our biologist who downloads the information, who brings together all the data and shows us how the salinity of the ocean can change, and that affects the whole life cycle of the lobster, because when we began, we were seeing these very soft lobster. And then I think their molting cycle became a little altered. And they were thinking that there was some illness or something among the lobster, but they began to shift their molting cycles, and basically the cycles and the time, periods where they would change their shells. And as the community says, we have information, we gather the information, and we also complement with academic research. And Michelle, our colleague, has the data from the sensors and is also bringing in the academic stuff, and they get in touch with these academics who can come and check our data and our information to sort of cross-compare. That is so interesting to see how you manage this data, because it's not just that you're going down and gathering the information, but you're also involved in decision-making based on those data and observing the ways in which the data has been shifting, and you're even collaborating with universities and fishing cooperatives in the areas where you live. So before we go on, I see that there were lots of questions in the chat with regard to this issue, and they're asking, and you may have answered this, what have you seen in terms of the changes? And could you share with us what types of projects are you working on at Stanford University? And I wanted to ask you too, because
toman datos y que con eso se toman decisiones para proteger los ecosistemas. También saber cuáles son las partes más difíciles del trabajo que están llevando a cabo, ¿no? Sabemos que también puede ser agotador. Ya nos dijeron que se necesita muchísima preparación, ¿no? Para ir a monitorear,
So you
no solo son
said
días, sino son
that you do a lot of preparation and it takes days and days to prepare for a dive. And also you do physical preparation in order to go down. And so I was wondering if there are also challenges that you continue to face, or perhaps ones that you have resolved. We'd love to know. Not everything that is working well, but also a little bit about what challenges you're facing in sustaining this work, which of course is not easy. Well, the work of divers and monitors is a very beautiful and wonderful work, but it's so challenging. It's very complex. And sometimes it is a very taxing job. It's very taxing work. And we have often felt that it's not easy to stay on this path. And sometimes we see that not everything is clear, or when we don't have sufficient support, for example, because of the fact that we're women, it can be very exhausting. And the most difficult thing is not just the physical, but also the emotional side of this, to continue believing that what you're doing, even in times when there's lots of doubts and questions, is very, very taxing, very tiring. But also, we understand why we're staying in this struggle, why we're in this fight. We're opening up doors for others, and we are making sense of it for ourselves and saying, okay, we know this is difficult. We know this is a huge challenge, but we don't want future generations to have to go through all of this exhaustion, all of this very tiring work in terms of, overcoming these obstacles. So we want it to be easier for them. It's not just a physically demanding job, but it's also extremely emotionally demanding. Of course, women are quite resilient, and we're up to the task.
Pues en mi caso,
well, in my case, when I began to do this work of diving, when I was learning to dive, well, my colleagues would always say that before they started diving, they didn't even know how to swim. And with this course, they learned to dive and then they learned to swim, which is something to really recognize about my colleagues. They're such resilient women that they left, they were able to take some time out from their small children and do this important work. And they learned how to dive, and then they learned how to swim. And they really faced their fears and the challenges and the questions of what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And they were so resilient. In my case, I did know how to swim, but I didn't quite understand what I was up against. And first of all, working just with men, which is quite hard. And there's always this idea that women can't go out on the boat, or women can't be in these spaces where there's so many men, because in small communities, it's like people often look down or think poorly of women who are around a lot of men. And they often think that only men can do it. Men are allowed on the boats. Men can do that stuff. And women are just supposed to be housewives and mothers and in the home. And so for me at the beginning, it was very challenging to go out and leave my small children behind. Of course, they learned very fast. When I began, my daughter was just 11 months old when I started training. And so I had barely recuperated from, having given birth and had a baby and all that stuff when I started my training. And so I was very worried about my young daughter and who will take care of her. And is it okay for me to go and do this work as a monitor and a diver? But it is possible. We did the work. to do basically both things, to be mothers and be divers. We would come right out of our wetsuits and right into the role of moms again. So it was very difficult at the beginning. It was hard to adapt to these changes, but we also wanted to, well, now that we're Sirenas de Mexico, I think we were like the test case. You know, the first ones. And now a lot of women in our country want to be divers. And a lot of people that I meet will say, oh, I have a cousin, I have a friend, you know, who's into diving. And you used to never see that in our country. Of course, there were occasionally biologists who would do it, but we never saw women from the communities really going out as divers and monitors. If I had $1 for every time someone told me, oh, I've never met a woman diver, I would be very rich. And it's really just so nice to hear people say, oh, wow, I never met a woman diver. And it's really impressive the work that you women are doing in the communities. It's so exciting. And we show on our personal social media accounts, especially our Instagram and our Facebook ones, especially for Sirenas de Mexico, we have our accounts. And women, as well as men, are noticing the work that we do. We are a team, of course, and we work together. And we're looking out for the common good. We want healthy oceans, healthy coasts, and resilient communities. It's tough work, but we're staying in this fight. Of course, as I said, we were the test case, you know, we were the lab rats for this. But now we're seeing that more and more women are joining Sirenas de Mexico, and our example is spreading. So it's so inspiring to hear you in all of the challenges that you faced, all that you've had to learn in order to do this work. And you're really a reference point for many other community diving outfits who are concerned with protecting and guarding their areas and ecosystems. And I just wanted to talk about what you were mentioning, not just the physical challenges, but the emotional and mental ones as well. And I wanted to know how Sirenas de Mexico has been connecting different women divers with coastal communities, and if the work that you've done has been bringing in new resources and helping to expand your network, and how the collaboration between Sirenas, Buea, and Covey has really benefited folks.
Pues algo que principalmente ahorita,
well, especially right now, 7 of our colleagues are dive masters. Elba and our other colleague were at the first meeting with Buea, and we began to really dream. And we were like, really, go for it. And so they did. And these women pursued their dive master. And we did a meeting in La Paz, and we realized how many women there are in the communities who are doing the same thing as us. And something that we have to really highlight is that we're not scientists. We are not highly educated. The knowledge that we have is knowledge that we've acquired through our lives, and we've been learning as we go. And we were often looked at as insignificant because our communities never really recognized us, never really noticed us. They always were kind of like, oh, it's not that important what you're doing. But then we began to connect with more and more women who do similar work, and we realized that it is so important what we're doing, because we obviously don't have that benefit of having studied, but we have our knowledge. And in La Paz, there were 20 community representatives gathered. The majority were trained by Arturo Hernandez at Covey, who is our father diver mentor. And a lot of folks got inspired by Sirenas de Natividad because that was the first cooperative. And Arturo always said, oh, send us a little video so we can share that with the women at Rosario and different places. And we used to be a little shy about doing it, but Sirenas de Mexico is now such a large cooperative. And we are trying to get connected and connect others so that we can share the sources of support that we've got and the resources. And there have been lots of collaborations with, for example, the women of Bahia de Los Angeles and the Kino Collective. Most of these are mixed groups, men and women, but we try to specifically support other women because in their collectives, they often don't have decision-making power, but we see that in certain areas where women do become involved in decision-making, they are becoming more proud, more powerful, more sort of strong in terms of their ideas and their contributions. And we've also learned that there are lots of women who are talking about the Poca women and the collectives that we have shared experiences with, and they're taking this example. And of course, you know, it's just one small thing, but you see how many other women are making contributions in their communities, their coastal communities, and it's great to see that we can serve as a source of inspiration. And we've been working hard. Sometimes you can get a little down and say, oh, you know, for example, we haven't been monitoring in a while. We've had a couple of years off, but then our other women colleagues say, no, it's okay. The work is being done here, and we can really encourage one another and also teach young people and children the love for the sea and the love for the ecosystems, because sometimes they see the ocean as just a resource, just a source of food and sales. But when you really understand the ecosystem, you understand its value. And that's what we're trying to do as Sirenas de Mexico.
Muchas gracias por esa respuesta.
Thank you so much for your answer. For the rest of the audience,
se reunieron 25 sirenas de natividad. Gracias a esta
25 Sirenas de Natividad got together in La Paz in October. And that was a really beautiful gathering where Elba and Mitzi and their other colleagues were able to share lots of what is being shared here. And I would love to close with this question. In 10 years, if the work that you're doing now were to become transformed into exactly what you dream of, how would that look? How would that look for women in the communities? I think in 10 years, we would love to be able to see many communities where girls and women know that the space of the ocean is also a space for them. And it's not something strange for women to be involved. It's something normal. It's normal. It'll be normal to see women divers and monitors in these communities. And we want to see the ecosystems protected, taken care of, stewarded. And it's not just our ocean, but rather our responsibility.
También queremos hacerles saber que pues visibilizar los trabajos que hacemos nosotras es abrir espacios, es
and what we really want to do is open up spaces in this type of work that we women are doing as community women who are divers and monitors. And it's not just something, the work isn't just something that connects us, but really this desire to protect the ocean and take care of it. We all have a role in taking care of the ocean because our communities and nearly all of us rely on the ocean.
Bueno, pues en mi caso, en 10 años, como miro Sirenas de México.
From my side, in 10 years,
ahorita somos 56
Sirenas de Mexico. Right now, we have 56 women in our collective. I would love to see us reach 200 members. And I would love to see at least 50 dive masters in our group. And our women who are working, I would love to see all of them trained and aware of the fact that, I would like to see them not facing so many limits or obstacles. I would like them to be able to go out alone, thanks to COVID and the other support that we've had from GUEA and others. It's really becoming possible. And I see, when I look ahead, the possibility of lots more women being trained and with the status of dive master and helping to protect our ecosystems. And that's the vision that I have for Sirenas de México. And I want us to be Sirenas de Latinoamérica one day and really expand throughout Latin America or across the world in terms of these community divers, as Mitzi said. As Mitzi said, we were told to dream big. We did it. We made it. And this vision that we have, perhaps we won't achieve it next week because it's challenging, but maybe in 6 years, maybe we'll see a big difference within a year. And so this is something that, or in 2 years, this is something that we continue to dream and we continue to look forward to. And we want to inspire more women. And in 10 years, I would love to see my daughter as a diver and monitor in her area, even if she wants to study something else. I think it would be great for her to have that option to work as a monitor. And I would live to see my daughter, Daniela's daughter, Mitzi's daughter, inspired by their moms and taking part in these activities. Yes, in 10 years, what I would love to see is a legacy, to leave a legacy in our communities, because we're no longer we don't want to be stuck in this pattern of men just working and having to leave the community to work. We want to really strengthen ourselves as Sirena de Mexico, and we want to leave a legacy for our communities and make sure that the work we're doing continues to be a source of inspiration for many others, many women, and we don't just want to stay where we're at. We want to really expand. We want to train more women. We want to continue doing the work. And there's this sort of idea that women do work in a very methodical way, and men are more like outgoing or something. But I would love to really show within the next several years that there's a strong legacy of this organization. We're breaking stereotypes. Thank you. As you say, Elba, we would love to see these changes happen tomorrow. But of course, it's true. Over time, as we stay in this fight, as we continue to grow the network, we will eventually one day perhaps see a Sirenas de Latinoamérica. I wanted to say congratulations on your dive master and congratulations on your work to lead these monitoring trips and all of the wonderful contributions you're making. I do see that we have several comments in the chat, several questions, so I wanted to perhaps give us another moment to answer them. And if anyone has anything else to add, now's the time to do it. So there's a question about, in addition to counting species, are you also collecting water samples? Yes, in Natividad we do that. But there are other communities where we also connect DNA, is that right? Yes, we do collect environmental DNA so that we can see how the ocean itself is doing, whether it's more contaminated or what. We have temperature sensors to help us know what the conditions are and which species are in which areas. So yes, we do that. Thank you so much. We also had a question about whether there are banner species or indicator species. Perhaps you mentioned this already, but you could name perhaps some indicator species that are helping you know that the ecosystems that you're monitoring are improving. Kelp is an indicator species. If there's a lot of kelp, it helps us know that the water temperatures are good and that there's abundant food. What have you seen? In addition to the monitoring with Sirenas de Natividad, I'm also part of a fisher cooperative. I work with Masquel that does biological monitoring in northern Baja California in the Corona Islands, and they look at kelp forest, and from Rosario and up, they're not there anymore. And the urchins are causing that. So if you dive in those areas that are more southern, the cooperatives are noticing that there's more kelp, and then what we're seeing is that there's a lot of pirates and folks who are really deteriorating things. And so, and a red flag that I wanted to add
Can I share with you?
is that the increase in water temperatures, the whale shark was something that we saw a few years ago that had never been seen in a specific area. Those are normally in warmer waters, and we didn't really understand why it was worrying to see them in these kelp forests. And we realized that this was an impact of climate change. Natividad is not their normal area. So it's sad to see how global warming has affected many species. In our case,
ellos son los que mantienen el equilibrio de nuestro arrecife.
It's the meros.
Para nosotros cuidarlos, ¿por qué? Porque como ya se los mencioné anteriormente, se reúne el 80 al 90% de toda la población de meros en un solo
80 or 90% of the meros are in one single area.
Entonces, acabar con ellos puede ser muy fácil para una persona. Tristemente tenemos la experiencia que
they can easily be wiped out.
Un sitio de agregación lo terminó una persona en un par de días.
And a single person could really wipe out the whole population in just a few days, and because the species grows very slow, and so we need to respect it. And the ones at the top of the food chain, at the top of the these smaller species are the ones that make sure that the other species at the top of the food chain are able to survive and thrive. Okay, so they're also asking if the data that you collect are used in public policies to protect marine life, or if there's any advocacy that goes on based on that data. What we do currently is we gather the data and we send them to COVI. They're the ones who are working with sharing the data. The data for now, we basically send it to them, and we know that they take advantage of that data to do comparative studies and share it with other organizations. Okay. And if you do any public policy, and maybe they do the public policy side of things, yeah? Okay, well, I think that... Oh, there's maybe one last question, because of course our time is running out, but they're asking if you have seen the impact of plastic in the ecosystems that you monitor.
Sí, justo estaba leyendo esa pregunta.
Yes.
Nos capacitamos varias Sirenas de México en retiro de arte.
Sirenas de México does a lot of training with Conservation International and COVI. And in our communities, we're trying to
que nos den la certificación en SMILE,
get a certification
pequeñas islas sustentables.
sustainable small islands. We are the first Mexican island to get that status, and we're doing training around waste management and plastics. And we're seeing that even in our very small community, there's a lot of waste. And we've been talking to our colleagues at Sirenas. Also, the problem with nets is quite significant. And Sirenas de San Blas, with the women from San Blas, they're working very hard on this issue of ghost nets. They went to the Senate to talk about the issue because it's something that they have to create some legislation around, because there are nets where you know who they belong to, but there are other ones that are being operated by folks who work illegally. And there's Conservation International even has a video where they pull out a huge net, a ghost net. It has a huge number of fish and other animals in it. But we're seeing what we can do with the trainings in order to help the ocean. Thank you very much for your response. The training that you're doing is so important to help restore the areas and remove these ghost nets. It's wonderful that Sirenas de San Blas has gone to the Mexican Senate. Thank you for sharing that. And it's great that they're promoting these types of conversations and considerations in high-level spaces to help protect our oceans. So we're going to begin to close the session, and I would like to thank Mitzi, Elba, and Aniela so much. I am so glad to have met you over this virtual space, and thank you so much for your work, your courage, your passion, and all the clarity with which you have presented the information that you shared today. We find it so inspiring. It is really an honor to walk alongside you. This is not an easy job. We thank you so much for being in this event.
While we're just about coming to the close of today's call, we want to be sure that you know that this isn't like a stopping point, it's a beginning, and there are many, many ways to take action and to weave yourself deeper and stay plugged into this alliance and our work moving forward. Our World Weaver events are meant to share and build bridges and understanding and action between the leaders and communities seeking to change our environmental landscape. And all of you that support this work, putting together this public event and programs like this takes an immense amount and effort and resources. And I want to express my gratitude to all WIA team for everything it took to organize today's event, and also to reorganize that, to recognize that this is all made possible by supports from our donors, funders, and givers. So thank you so much also for your support. You can join our alliance efforts today by making a one-time donation, by joining our seed bank or monthly donors, and also by joining our 20-year anniversary campaign, Raising Tides, Raising Women. We will empower the leadership of 15,000 grassroots women and over the next 3 years, and also reaching 25 million people with life-saving climate solutions. We also want to share some actions that you can take to be connected with Mitzi, Elba, and Aniela. If you know like a woman diver, a citizen scientist, or a coastal leader, please connect her with us. There is a big network waiting. You can also follow Sirenas de Mexico in their networks at Sirenas de Mexico, both in Instagram and Facebook. And in the gathering, if you are eager to learn more about the work we've been doing in collaboration, we met in La Paz during October last year, and there's a report about this first in-person gathering of the network of Sirenas de Mexico, the Equality at the Sea. And also in Mexico, we are currently designing our 2-year accelerator program in Mexico that will be supporting women-led collectives working in regenerative agriculture, land defense, food sovereignty, and environmental conservation. So if you represent an organization or foundation or are interested in supporting this work, we would love to connect with you. So feel free to send us an email at programs@womensearthalliance.org. And for sure, we will be sending a follow-up email with the recording of this call and also more resources to learn about this work very, very soon. Again, thank you so much, Mitzi, Elba, Añela. Muchas gracias por estar aquí, por responder al llamado.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for participating in this call, and we will continue in conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Muchas gracias.